Okay, good night, good night, good night, good night. Welcome to the Fatherhood Think Tank. Uh, I don't know. You know what? You try to do new things, try to move things around, and it's always something. So, so people who may watch us on YouTube that we did like 3 or 4 times, these companies are full of it. Somehow we can't stream the YouTube. Right. I got to figure this out. I don't know why. So, you can't stream the YouTube, but it allows you, but it's, I mean, not the YouTube, but the Facebook. So I'm going to investigate that. So right now I'm going to have to share the Facebook feed and then move everything else around. But we're still on our page on YouTube, and that's all that really matters, I guess, at this point. If you are watching, like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the most fatherhood 90 minutes you ever have in your whole entire life at the Fatherhood Think Tank. I am Dr. Ron Osborne Williams, the Fatherhood Think Tank curator. And we are going to have a very, very, very interesting topic tonight. A topic is one that, I know people think about, and it can be touchy, it can be questionable, it can be a lot of things. But tonight's topic, touchy, be is no what no there we go. Is our deadbeat parents getting a fair rap? And it's not deadbeat dads, it's deadbeat parents. And there's a reason why that is in there. And if people know, there was this video that came out about this mom making some cupcakes, and she was saying how hard it was to be a single mother and crying in the video. She was getting a lot of likes, and then the father came back and showed that the mother has not had the kids. She does not have the kids, and he has full custody and takes care of the kids. And so she was going on there to, I don't know what she was going on there to do, but whatever. So, and I thought about it as that happened. I was like, but we don't really know the whole story. We never, and as much as we can give her the benefit of the doubt, sometimes we have to also give um, other people the benefit of the doubt. So, with that being said, let me give the benefit of the doubt to our panel for tonight, the guys who are here, the fathers. Let them introduce themselves, and then we'll get right into this topic of the night. Are deadbeat parents getting a fair rap?
Okay. You want to start off?
Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
All right. Okay. So these terms, deadbeat, sperm donor, uh,
Introduce yourself.
uh, 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 these terms to me don't necessarily apply to every father. Uh, there are many situations where parents, parent or what we call it, married couples that are not married, they have challenges. We can always, it's fair to say that two people who grow from two different homes, it's even more challenging when you have a child added to that mixture. So many times I hear fathers get a lot of blame, and those are what I call unfit, untold expectations. Many fathers have it challenging. They are put into situations where they have to think outside of the box. And to say a deadbeat parent, every situation is different. Some folks are affected by drugs. Some folks are affected by the economics of financial stress. Some folks are stressed by homelessness. So it, making, I wish I saw that video. There are many, there are many different situations where I believe we should not say deadbeat parent. We should say help that parent. How can we help that parent to do better? That's what I would say about that. Because these terms tend to stick, and it becomes people's norms when they use these words. We have to focus on the child. That's my
Introduce
thought
it.
process.
Oh, did you introduce yourself, Rohan, or you just start talking, brother? I mean,
Are we doing the introductions?
yeah, we was. Rohan just went. I thought he was just saying, "Hey, I'm Rohan Ruddick. I
Yeah.
got 2 kids," but Rohan already got. He ain't waste no time. Maybe when this is what happens when you
Yeah.
have a time off. You get out of the cycle of what's going on. Rohan already made y'all already start thinking about how you gonna argue his decision. I discussed his discourse. Crazy.
Well, I apologize to everyone. I'm Rohan Rodok. I'm a part of this program, and some of these words might have touched me emotionally. But I'm a father of 2 daughters. I went to a graduation last night for one of my daughters, and the journey has just begun. She's 18, but we are trying to make her grow. So again, Rohan Rodok, 2 daughters, and I'm happy to be a part of the Fatherhood Think Tank.
Okay. Elder Thomas Alberry. I'm a father of 2 who are grown and married. I have 7 grandkids. One of my young ladies is my granddaughter was valedictorian of her class. We went to her graduation in Alabama, and I'm proud of all of my children.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Ed Tenney. I am married with a blended family of 6, 3 biologicals and 3 steps. I also have 3. I wish I had 3. 2 grandbabies.
Hey, good evening, gentlemen. My name is Lionel Lightborn. I'm a father to a tribe of 7 young adults, 3 young women, 4 young men, and 2 grandchildren, 1 granddaughter, 1 grandson, and it's always a pleasure to be with you guys.
All right, so Rohan, you was going off or going in, and you was
No, I'm
really
here.
on one.
I'm here.
And
I'm
so
here.
I want to come back
here.
to
I'm here.
I want to come back to what you were saying. I really want to get some meat into what you were saying, because I think what you're saying has a whole lot of validity into sometimes how we kind of deal with people, how we look at situations, and so forth.
Yes.
So, what qualifies, or what conditions are aligned, if you will, that determines the identity of a deadbeat parent? What are the circumstances behind parents who would be called deadbeat?
That's a really good question, because I think a lot of times anybody can, what I see a lot is a deadbeat. When I think about someone who's a deadbeat, a lot of times, I don't think you just have to be a parent to be a deadbeat. I think you could be in organizations, you could be in clubs, you could be in any type of program or membership into something, and be a deadbeat. And when I think about the definition of deadbeat, is someone who has, but they don't pay what they owe. They don't pull their fair share They don't, do what they should are supposed, or what is maybe have been agreed upon doing. And I think the big part of that is, for me, to be a deadbeat is something that you would have to have agreed to, um, and then you didn't want to do it. Then you stopped doing it or refused to do it. And then here's the other part about that makes it problematic. You could go to a church and supposed to pay your tithes, and then you don't want to go to that church no more. You're not going to pay tithes to that church. So you may go to another church and start paying tithes, and that church say, "Well, you made a commitment to this church to pay your tithes." So it's even in memberships that I'm in clubs and organizations, and they have memberships and dues, and they expect you to pay. You're supposed to pay, and people who don't pay, we got names for them, and we probably don't use the word deadbeat, but that would make them a deadbeat because they're supposed to pay their dues. They're supposed to support what they agreed to support, but they don't. But then we don't know why. Sometimes people are disenchanted with the club, and they're not going to get in money to a club that they're not happy with. That's why I put it. I don't think deadbeat is exclusive to parenting. I think it's exclusive to people who are old, who made agreements to be accountable, and then they're not.
So, follow-up question then. If a parent on either side is upholding their end financially, but is not, involved from a social aspect or parenting aspect or influential aspect, are they not a deadbeat parent if they are paying what they're supposed to pay, but just invisible in other aspects of that child's life?
Yeah, but and I think that's what I agree. I don't think money makes you a deadbeat. I think your commitment to what you agreed upon makes you the deadbeat. But I think that our culture has made money the defining factor of what you do. Like imagine being a man who loses his job and does nothing but spend all his time with the kids. There's some people who call him a deadbeat because he ain't got no money. They'll say you need to go out and get a job because you want to be a deadbeat. When he's just being a parent who's being a parent. Money and parenting, I know people think it goes hand in hand, but it doesn't. Parenting is parenting. Having money is something different. Because you go in all countries outside of this great United States of America, people parent with no money. And their kids pretty much do pretty well in that case. I take a great example of two twins that was separated at birth. One came to America, the other one stayed back in that country. And somehow the twin that was here wanted her parents to go and find the sister so they could get together. And the people were trying to at some point, the family that had established and stayed together with the twin, her aunt, and those people, the sister and the family over here had money, finance, and they were saying, "Oh, we should bring her over here so she could be here with her twin." And the twin didn't want to come. The twin had the family that even though they were, in our terms, maybe impoverished, and maybe they came here and things would be better, they didn't want to come to America and live with their twin. They wanted to stay with their family who had raised them, who had took care of them, and who was dirt poor. They going down to the... So that changes this dynamic sometimes, I think, when we try to say money is a factor. But I think more of Elder Thomas says is all the time, our time is a factor. And what we put into our kids that will make us a deadbeat. Now, I know Rohan will say there are people who will stop you from spending that time. So the most you probably can do is give some finance.
Right.
you know, and I think that we sometimes don't see that part. We don't see the part of the people who don't have access, right? So the only thing they can do is give finance, and then you hear the complaint that that person only plays finance. So they are deadbeat who pays for their kid. So that's why my viewpoint about it being kind of like a bad rap is because it depends on who's coming up with the allegation that you're a deadbeat. You know, it really depends.
Well, I'm gonna have to differ with you guys on some of that stuff because I don't think I think from the origins of manhood, our two primary objectives are to, were to, and still to provide and protect. Our very presence actually speaks to that. I couldn't see a man excuse not working. That just doesn't fly with me. He has to still serve those two primary purposes to provide and protect. If him and his significant other wife, child's mother, have that type of agreement where she makes enough money and he can be at home and compensate monetarily for that time to balance things out within that household, but still promote and push progress. Okay, by all means, I'm for that. But that vision lies solely with that man. Um, the term deadbeat is a very disrespectful term, but it's a disrespectful term that works both ways. It's a disrespectful term that works where um, the disengagement or whether the disenfranchisement of fatherhood, and particularly it's going to fall primarily on father way before the system came in, because you got to remember you had to have a certain injustice before you can have a justice put in place to actually handle that injustice. And so when you had the rapid um, disenfranchisement of the family, be it when men who was probably not taking care of one family went and started another family, and then kept starting these families they couldn't take care of, and then now so provision and protections, because again, you talk about provision and protections, you can't be in two places at one time. So why do you got four households? You understand that you're responsible, and so with that, I can't justify it. And again, this justice on the child support, this didn't magically appear, and so the disrespect comes from the action, right? The action or the injustice that took place that made there have to be a justice in place. Because think about it like this: for the most part, justice never dealt with personal issues. If you look at the history of justice in this country, and mostly any country,
Right.
they had to create a justice arm to actually deal with family issues, be it absent parents or abusive parents or abusive fathers. And so I don't want we put a lot of blame on the steps of justice. Come on, like justice was not created for the family. Justice had to be forced. You had to force the hand of justice to actually reach into the families to make, and unfortunately to make guys do right, because we were the what they call it, the stars in this drama. You understand? In this episode of what's going on right now. And so with that, I can't really say I understand the two terms of deadbeat, and then it's usually a narrative that's used to actually identify the disrespect we just spoke about. And so, but common sense wise, nothing dead ever beats. You never seen a dead heartbeat. You understand? So nothing dead really beats. You understand? But to show the irony of it and the dysfunction of it, because it is a certain dysfunction that comes along with disconnect. We even in our narrative, we're even dysfunction in our narrative, just calling something deadbeat, but we know nothing dead ever beats. And so I think there's a lot of hurt going on, and hurt people. And so when it comes to, you put all that hurt together, we get this particular topic here. So I'm gonna leave it right there.
You know, Lionel, I like how you mentioned that. I can say to all fathers, whether you're deadbeat, you're financially challenged, you are surviving. You're stressed because being a father, you can be stressed. Just like well, let me repeat, being a parent, you can be stressed. Don't give up.
Mm-hmm.
Don't there are many situations where things get rough, things don't look good, and you're like, what do I do now? What do I do? Don't give up. Keep on moving. I always tell people, keep on moving. Sometimes you don't know where you're going, but keep on moving. Look for resources that can support you and support you and your child, because the journey of life comes with crying, laughter, and many other scenarios. So whether you're deadbeat, a good father, a missing father, focus on the child. Focus on the child, and there'll be rewards if you put in your time. That's what I want to add to this.
Hmm.
Ron, yeah, I can. And now we're going to talk about. I'm going to give some examples. I'm right here in, me. I'm out here in Miami, vicariously through Miramar, but I'm always Miami to the core. In 1 week, I'm going to give you a snapshot on what I'm talking about. In 1 week, we had the murders of about. I'm talking about 1 week. You're talking about 1 week in a 10-mile radius. We had the murders of, I think, 4 children. It's young as 3 years old, right? This is down in South Florida, right here in Miami. Between I'd say all Miami, all that took place in Miami. And so, one situation, you have a guy, a family suicide. Again, that point is, remember I told you about the injustices, and so it's a family suicide. Who was the culprit of that? A man. Let's move forward.
Mm-hmm.
We have another situation where a mother and her child is killed at the ATM when she was going to withdraw money to pay to the teachers on the last day of school.
Yes, my Lord.
She's killed. The dude just literally, you can see it on camera, he just goes up the car with no reservation, blows the mother away and the 3-year-old child away. No reservations. And then gets in the car and kills himself. Who's the culprit of that? Another man. Here's the strange part about it. This is a man that was not even the father of her child. This is a man who was a boyfriend who killed the child that belonged to another father who was taking care of his child. And to a certain extent, they did divorce, and he could have very well fell in that, just for the separation alone, fell in that that category of deadbeat because of them not being together. He could have been deemed, stereotyped as a deadbeat because he didn't have the presence there to protect or provide for them, I'm just talking hypothetically, which puts them in that situation, in that vulnerable situation for both of them to be murdered. Third situation, I'm talking about all this happened in like 1 week.
I saw it.
7-day window. All of this happened, and 2 of them happened within a 12-hour window, which is the one with the families. Fast forward 3 days forward, a mother and a child is literally shot up on a turnpike. Another kid, another mother. I'm sure the culprit of that is a male as well. I'm saying that to say this. When we understand the psychology of a man or manhood, we understand there is a certain level of disrespect. I think we are better and better built to take care of women than we are to take care of children. Because if that was not so, and I think we always trying to skip over the woman. I'm like, no, you're really supposed to master loving her. And then we find ourselves, since we fail at that companionship, what we do is we put ourselves in a competition with the woman when we fail at the companionship of that woman. The psychology of a man is completely dangerous when he's out of order within that family structure. The history, the statistics, the science, and I'm talking about globally, speaks to that, because there's nothing for us. If we thought that child or that child becomes more important than us, defeats the mission or the purpose of us, yes, that child can become a casualty of us. That's the reality of it. That's the thing you won't hear too many men confess, because it's very unpopular to confess, but very practical. Because I know the makeup of my manhood. And I know, men, this is why globally we can have wars that kill children with no reservations. And so to say,
Yes.
all of a sudden, because we get domesticated, right? That's supposed to change. When we know globally, and when we feel like our purpose is threatened, we will have a war and wage war to kill children. To think that domestically that is going to be contained because by certain laws and statutes and stuff like that, that is untrue. And so this is the science and the psychology of this show of what we're trying to tap into and have these deep discussions that you probably won't have nowhere else because we don't get paid for it. All we get to do is walk a man through a situation that he may very well be thinking about taking the lives of his family. This show actually may walk him out of that or walk him through that so he may never complete that. And so that's I have to tap into and master my own psychology to understand the psychology of every man in that situation. And then ask myself, have you ever thought about being in that situation, or have that ever crossed your mind? And the answer would probably be yes. And just because I didn't confess it doesn't mean I didn't think it. And so this is the reality of that particular circumstance. We just try to base it on anger and stuff like that. Like, no, you may not kill out of anger. You may just kill out of jealousy. A lot of people get killed out of jealousy, not anger. That guy who killed that woman and that child in that bank ATM, people like, it was anger. I'm like, no, he killed her out of jealousy. You understand that? But we think that anger is the only thing that makes you kill a person. I'm like, no, you can kill a person out of an array of emotions. But that's the thing that these 102 shows have been exploring, be it consciously or unconsciously. And so that I'm just leave it right there for right now because my brain is going 100 miles an hour.
Well, to add a note, and I say this openly for everyone to hear, we live in a culture where the word MORE is common, right? Many times your bills want more, so you want more too, to at least pay your bills, right? But let's talk about it in real details. I tell women that I meet, whenever you take money, in most cases from someone, there is going to be a level of control. Now, when I say that, most people are like, why would you say that? But think about it. Your workplace pays you to be at work during a certain time, and you are required or expected to work within that period of time, right? But many times, in relationships, there what I call pain pursue pleasure. Sometimes both parties or one of the parties is in pain and one of the party provide pleasure. And when I say pleasure doesn't necessarily mean pleasure. It could mean I'm paying your rent, I'm paying your child care. And what generally happens most of the time, whether the person is, as what Lionel just said, jealousy comes into place and control comes into place. If you look at that bank where that guy got shot, that car is like a Mercedes Benz. That thing probably costs a lot of money. So it could be a case where this guy is financially able to take care of the lady, or was taking care of the lady. So we have seen as Lionel said, we've seen babies dying. So the male, I just want you guys to know this. I have to put this out for all men and women. Suicide is on the rise. Now, when I say suicide, most people think of suicide as someone is in despair and they commit suicide, right? But they can also commit suicide by hurting others. So we know that men are more successful at committing suicide than women. Not that women can't commit suicide, they're just not as successful as men. So here we have what Lionel says. The guy goes to the bank, shoots the lady, shoots a child that doesn't belong to him, and takes his life. This is a word for everyone. Those relationships that are unhealthy, they were silly choices, silly rewards. I'm not saying all men are bad. I'm not saying all women are bad. But usually there's red flags. And this murder of children is happening too often. And the best thing I can say, just tell the truth. You start off with the truth, you don't have to lie. Because many people are playing games and the poor babies and children are getting hurt. So as a father, as a mother, do the right thing. That's what I have to say about this.
Rohan, in this young lady's defense, I'm going to have to show you another emotion. I'm like, okay, in a 4-alarm fire, the most dangerous thing we think in that 4-alarm fire is the actual flames. Nobody really considers the carbon monoxide. Well, that's the situation in this situation with this young lady. What you just said doesn't fit her narrative, because yes, he's well-to-do, and he was driving whatever car he was driving, just given on the makeup of him. He's not disciplined enough, because the fact that he did that act, I can almost predict that he's not disciplined enough to really like have that kind of lifestyle. So chances are it's probably his mother's car, right? Or a car that his parents bought him. She was very well to do. She worked at the public hospital the main public hospital down here in Miami, which is Jackson Memorial, and she worked there for 15 years. So this is an accomplished woman who is strong enough within herself, right? And then I'm saying that because she divorced her husband, who seemed like to be an accomplished husband, but she was strong enough within herself to know that what I will and will not take in a relationship.
Right.
This draws us back to this situation where this guy kills her. One thing we don't talk about, because we talk about anger and stuff like that, but here's the kryptonite for men. You're gonna love this one. She gives him something that successful men on any level can never handle. You want to know what that is, Rohan?
Yeah.
Rejection.
Yes.
Reject.
You reject, particularly and it happens even more if you reject a person who thought they was the most.
Yes.
And it happens even worse if they thought you were less and you rejected them as more. You understand? And so with that rejection, very dangerous thing that we don't, you won't come up. But I'm like, well, they're like, yeah, still. I'm like, no, anger and rejection are two separate things. And so when you have the like, how dare you? And you'll see that even in our history where the slaves were freed, you understand, and was deemed as less, and now all of a sudden, within the span of one proclamation, we get equal rights, or to be equal as you. You understand? Then you talk about mass slaughters that we probably haven't even fathomed yet, and still experience after the Emancipation Proclamation. Well, I'm telling you, in human behavior, these are no different. We think they're separate, but they're not. It's just human behavior, one on a racist front and one on a sexist front. And in that situation, when you have a guy who thinks that, and probably because he didn't look like a bad looking guy, and he didn't look like he ever want for anything. And so once you come into a rejection that you probably never had to deal with in your life because you always had your way with women,
right,
that becomes a culture shock for you, and particularly as a man. And then you end up seeing what we saw on TV. On the
One
news.
second.
I'm sitting here thinking something in the Bible. It tells us that in the last days, the love of many shall wax cold.
Repeat that.
Meaning that the love of many shall wax cold. Mean that the love for each other will not be there. It's going to go where it's freezing. You're not capable, or you don't want to love someone to the point where you rather destroy someone than to build them up. Taking rejections, and then the object of the who rejected you want to wipe them out. So it's when I sit here and think about it all, how we look around and live in today. It's terrible.
Wow.
It's terrible.
And I'd like to add too.
But we as fathers, go ahead.
No, please. Elder, go ahead. My bad. Are you?
Because we as fathers have to step up and be not these dads that don't care and don't want to care, don't want to do. We as fathers must live by example to our wives, our special one, and to our children.
I agree. Another thing too, Lionel talked about rejection. As a father who may be in a situation where there's another male around your child, be present. Go, let them know that you're there. You may not be the perfect father, but be there. Stop by on a weekend. I want to see my child. I always say focus on the child. Yeah, as I say, focus on good things. Right? Focus on the child. You focus on the child. Make sure the other father know that you're there. There's a father that comes here. He may not come every week, but he comes. He comes by the gate. He goes by the park, because I do that right now. I go by the park to see my kids. I don't necessarily go to the house. So I'm just saying that make sure you're there. Make every effort to be there, to be a present father. You may not be there financially, but you can be there in person. Because then the other party or the other father will think and say, well, this guy's always around. He's an absentee father. So I know it's challenging. We're all here trying to survive, try to advocate, but make sure you're there. If they don't want to go to the house, go to the school. There's two kind of fathers I've met since I've been in this fatherhood program. There are fathers that focus on the mom, and I have to keep it real. She's gone, or she went, or she's just there physically. But I think it's the father that does best is the one that focuses on the child. And if you focus on the child, let's be real here. I don't know how many fathers are listening to this program. Most times the child don't give no problems. Most times it may be the other parent. So let's focus on the child in these situations. And I think there are rewards if we do so.
So Ron, let me ask you this question. I hate guys, really advocating hard. And I don't agree with any responsibility that men or fathers have. But I sometimes like Kevin Hart would say, my bank account ain't set up like that. And in some cases, if you, and I guess the many, we got a lot of people who they don't want to be involved with the mom. That's why they don't get to see their baby. So I know we take that thing that the guy want to be involved with the mom, and he can't be involved with the mom. He don't want no involvement with the kid. But if I heard 1,000 times about a mother saying, women saying, sometimes women saying, me and this kid is a package deal. We a package deal.
I've heard that.
And when I think about that, being a package deal, but then sometimes you ain't planning to buy that package. If I don't plan to buy, if I plan to go to the butcher, and all I really wanted was a couple slices of bacon, and the butcher say, I got bacon for you. But then when he give me my bag for my bacon, he got chitlins in that bag. He done put some pig ears, pig stout. I ain't going to make sauce. I only wanted some bacon for my breakfast. And you get to the caterer and they say, this is a package deal. They say, but I only want this bacon. No, you got to take all this other stuff. You got to take all this other stuff. Okay. So that, I mean, people can say, well, you a man, you should take that. This should happen and these things, blah, 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 and whatever. But we still human beings. And being a human being, you still have some freedom and right of choice of certain things. Right? So I mean, right. And the other problem is that that we have, and just bear with me a minute. That ain't gonna be the same. That ain't gonna be the same deal for her if she don't want it to be. She makes the choice. She makes the decision. She determines what happens, what not happens. If I could count on the hands of the number of men who's trying to have a baby with their wives, trying to have a baby with their wives, the one that they support, they take care of, they provide, they put the roof over their head, they go to work every day, they're trying to have a baby so they can have a legacy, and their wives continue to take birth control or do other things, have abortions behind their back. And I just being fair. Just being fair, I know we should be responsible, accountable, all that. But be fair when we talk to this. And it might not be fair. It might not be fair. And if it's not fair, that might explain why some people act out the way they act out. Because a person that feels unjust, their mental capacity doesn't work that way.
Well, Ron, okay. There are certain things that I call it falls under coulda, shoulda, woulda. Yeah,
Coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Coulda, shoulda, woulda. I'm not use that as a layman terms. Yeah, we know that went to the store to get the bacon, and I got something else in the package. That happens, right? It happens. It happens every day. But let's go deeper. When words are said, they're like bullets. Once fired, they can't be taken back, right? I think we tend to agree on that. So we are very careful with the words we use and how we use it. Also, when sperm is fired or ejected or whatever happened to the sperm, it can't be taken back, right? So I say coulda, shoulda, woulda. Know that the sperm has been placed or went where it should. What do we do now? Can we go back in the store and say, guess what? I ordered sausage and I got bacon, or I didn't get what I wanted. When it comes to a child, it's a whole different story. It's not a return package. It's not like I can say, okay, I'm gonna go to this place and sign a return package and send back the child. The boat has sailed. And despite things sometimes don't work out the way it should, the boat has sailed. And whether you're on the deck of the boat, the back of the boat, on the chain of the boat, you're on the boat. So I wanted to put that out for many fathers. That yes, I understand the narrative by being at the dock, but unfortunately, you're on the boat. And what do we do when you're on the boat? The thing
Listen, Rohan, I'm not arguing that with you. I agree with it. Listen, I have no complex with it. I have no problem with it.
Right.
You did not answer my question. What happens when you expect your sperm to go into the place, and then the person makes a decision to say they're not going to do that?
Well, Ron, I always say this as a man who have been around and learned. Two people go into situations, right? And I always say this: anything that is signed, each parties must know their roles and expectations. But let's be real here. When people have love making, so to speak.
Come on, lawyer. Come on, Philadelphia lawyer. Come on.
Okay. What are the roles? What are the roles that are discussed and the expectations that are expected for both parties? So most people meet sexually. I said it. Most people meet sexually. And when they meet sexually, things happen. And this is why we're here, and there are going to be other babies here, other adults here, years to come. And is there a rule book? Is there a book I should take out and say, okay, I'm going to ask all these questions prior to being with you? How many people do that? Who does that? So I just want to put that out there. I had a female once, and I said to her, "Can you text me before I do something?" She says to me, "Who does that?" I'm not saying to you guys, it's not as easy as how we may think it is. There's much more involved.
What's not easy? I'm asking you what's not because this is my whole discourse. My whole discourse is when you tell me something's not easy, right? Is it not easy for who? Because it's easy. If it's not easy for one human, it shouldn't be easy for another as well.
All right. So let me put it the best way I can put it.
Go ahead.
There's two parties that come together and they like each other, but they may have different ulterior motives. Is that the word? Yeah, ulterior motives. They have different motives. Let's do this for an example. The female goes to the gynecologist and the gynecologist says to her, you know what, you're 36 years old. If you're thinking of having a child, I would suggest you have a child around now because you may have fibroids. Your eggs are running out. So if you're thinking of having a child, I suggest you do it within the next 4 years. So that's a female, right? Let's go on to a male. The male meets a female and likes her, right? Beautiful lady. She has a good career. She's a nice lady. And they court each other. They like each other. And the male says, I'm only here to do a drive-through. I'm only driving through. I don't want to park. Yeah? So the male goes and have a relationship with the female. Now, we have two different scenarios here. The female says, okay, I like this guy, so I could have a child with this guy. I like him. He looks responsible. Maybe I could see him as a father. But the male says, I'm only doing a drive-through. But that is not discussed. Yeah? So during that drive-through and during that female plan, you have a baby that is born. Communication is a key to every relationship. And truthful communication is a key. But many times we're not truthful. And if we adopt those principles and be clear, I believe many children will not get hurt, many people won't get hurt. But we live in a world where the flesh sometimes rule and sometimes win. So as fathers, the system look at you as the responsible one. So the male went there to do the drive-through, but the system is going to hold him responsible because the system is going to say that you're the male, you should have known better. Not the female. The system is going to say the male should have known better. That is how the system is designed. Something to think about.
Go ahead, Ed. I see your mind going. Please get in there, jump in there, Ed.
It's always difficult for me to, I don't know, is it identify with those situations? Those situations are exactly, or it's the antithesis of how my thought process was as I was coming of age. Not that I didn't, have my dalliances before, I got married, but I knew that if I was going to have children, I was going to have them under the umbrella of marriage. And fortunately, with my first wife, I found a partner with, to have my biological children with, and we both had the same focus. Our focus was, let's both focus on God. Let's make that triangle so that as we both focus on Him, we then become closer because our focus is on Him, and He's going to show us that as we get closer to Him, how do we become closer to each other. And so there was, I'm not gonna lie to you and say we didn't have our difficulties, during our 31 years of marriage, but I followed a system, an ideal from a biblical perspective that ended up working. So when I hear about, you know, women with ulterior motives, guys who just want to do drive-throughs and stuff like that, I understand that because, you know, I was one, but then I came to myself, if you will, and I realized that, hey, if I wanted a family, if I wanted a children, that I'm not going to engage in any activity. And um, it's interesting. It wasn't until I decided that I wasn't going to have sex anymore with women that I felt like God brought my partner to me. So it was like I had made a physical decision, and God honored that and brought me somebody that I could marry and build a family with, and honored that with many years of marriage. So it's just really difficult for me to identify under those circumstances. I mean, I can understand, that sexual desire to just want to be able to, have sex with somebody. I can understand that. But then I don't know. I felt a conviction of the Holy Spirit to make sure that, whoever God brings in my life, I'm going to make sure I at least honor my body so I can be a gift to them. So I don't know what else to say. I just don't know how to identify with that stuff. I can. It's like if the system is broken when you enter in and have a baby, I don't know how to fix that. I don't know how you fix that. You have a baby out of wedlock, out of marriage and stuff like that. Sometimes even when you get married, that doesn't fix it because you're out of order. So I don't know. I don't have the answer to that, other than to support the father, support the mother, to make sure that the best interest of the child is taken care of, because ultimately it's not the baby's fault.
Well, Ed, what you actually, and you went from a spiritual. Let's say if we can take what you said spiritually and turn it to a sociology, right? What happens is this, and if I heard Rohan talking, I heard Dr. Ron and he and myself. Systemically, I think sexism works like racism. I don't think we really. Matter of fact, I don't think women have got the evolution, or not even so much the evolution, but the emancipation for their sexism like black people have gotten for their racism. I don't think we can pinpoint the Emancipation Proclamation for sexism like we can for racism. Because of that, this is what happens, and this is going to explain the broken system that you spoke about. When you have procreation, right? Because that's the whole purpose of sex, procreation. And so when you got one party or one gender party that sees procreation as a recreation, right? And then another party, gender party that sees procreation as a desperation, right? Biological clock, blah, blah, blah. And we seeing, again, you got recreation, right? And desperation, getting ready to meet for procreation. You understand? I'm going to show you. I'm just trying to walk you through the dysfunction of it. And so here it is. We got desperation meeting up with recreation, and they were getting ready to hit some procreation. The thing about it is this, and I think God took me on this journey before I got married, because I didn't even know what journey I was on. before I decided, because I'd already had all of my kids out of wedlock. So I'm like, what Paul said, I'm the chief sinner, right? So all judgment is hit right on my lap. And so when I decide, and I always remembered, and this is how systemically, emotionally dysfunction that we are as a society, if not a world. And so, because, and again, I'm going to speak back to this, I hear like the responsible parents, I'm talking about some of the best parents in the world, will tell their son, not really so much their daughters, that maybe you guys are too young for marriage, but old enough for sex. You understand? So, I mean, they will have a fit if these two young kids try to go get married, but nobody's protesting the right of them having sex. You understand? And so this is where the dysfunction starts. You understand? You got people who maybe or think they're morally sound, right? Given, what they call it, immorally contradicting themselves or being immoral hypocrites, right? When the sacrifice seemed to fall at their doorstep. Or we're morally sound when the sacrifice is somebody else's doorstep. But once that sacrifice hits our doorsteps, then we start to give immoral advice. And so when you're talking about really being that father, there has to be a reconditioning on all sides. Unfortunately, becoming that father or that unwanted father, or becoming that mother or that unwanted mother, and that child ends up being the therapy for both parties' dysfunction. That's unfortunate, because that's the situation that you find yourself in. And so now you see everything that happens in a therapy session start to happen in that parenting process, right? We go through all the nuances of pain, disagreements, and stuff that we never really had a chance to sit down and talk about, because we never went into the situation right. So we think we should come out of it right, or better yet, be existing it right before it can come out right. So everybody's talking about their right, even though everybody went into the situation wrong. That's amazing, right? Everybody expecting their rights. And so now what you find out is we don't understand that rights actually supposed to be benefits the whole, not the half. And so when rights only benefit you, then is it really right? Because if that right don't benefit the totality of your situation, then you have to question that right. What type of right is it? And that's the situation where we're in when it comes to being parents. And when you say hurt people, yeah, because here it is. I came in this reason for recreation reasons. I got involved in procreation and came in on a recreation understanding. And the other party came in out of desperation and came into the procreation out of desperation understanding. And all of a sudden now we got that kid come in. And so you got recreation meets desperation, and they create a situation. And that's unfortunately because we dump all of our therapeutic emotions in raising that child, and in some cases on that child. And that's unfortunate. And so that's just one of the circumstances I just wanted to throw out.
Well, like one, again, I don't disagree with anybody saying here, right? I think Ed brought to the forefront this idea of how many, and I guess this is the question I asked Ed, how many steps away were you from meeting and being in the place where you could have your wife and not have had a kid before you met her? Right? Because having a kid is not exclusively just a man's objective. Yes, men can go in. Listen, if we continue to act like, yes, I believe that there's, as a feminist therapist who is from the feminist point of view, right? I fully understand the idea of inequality that is in the everyday life, right? But that doesn't mean that because some oh, let me leave that alone. Let me leave that alone because I'm about to get myself in trouble. That's a whole nother story. But I'm living in a place where I'm seeing a similar thing every day, right? Do people get the opportunity and the choice to make someone else's decisions for them? You know, if we both came again, if we both came to drink a milkshake, if you put vodka in the milkshake and I don't know that, is that fair to me?
Ron, you're talking about, and I think too many people, and particularly as men, and I hate when men do this too. I hate when men talk from their right and not their responsibility. That's, I think, what pisses me off the most. And that's what
that's cool.
Well, I don't know. That's what keeps us pacified in society.
So,
you know
so where's my responsibility? Where's my my responsibility? Yes, responsibility can't just be placed upon you. It has to be something that you accept. That's why in being responsible, you will also be accountable. If tomorrow we do our kids a disservice. I see many kids in the society right now who is left to be parental parents to their brothers and sisters. And when they act out in school and act like fools and run around and do these things, and you think that this kid is so immature, why they mature, they're a smart kid, why don't they? And you realize that their response is to being put in a place of being responsible and accountable for something that's not what they signed up for. And so any other settings, when they don't have to be responsible, they be immature. They do immature things. They don't even know how to be responsible, even though they have to take care of their brother and sister, take them to daycare, take them to this, take them to that. That's unfair. That is unfair.
Well, right now you got it. You're speaking exactly to my point is manhood. Here we go. You're saying about the responsibility. You talk about the responsibility from when I say responsibility, immediately, right? Immediately you went to responsibility as being a father when I was really talking about the responsibility of being a man before you became a father. And so that's what I'm talking about. And that's how pacified we are, because we think responsibility starts at fatherhood and not at manhood. I'm talking about putting that thing right at the feet where it's supposed to be. And that's your manhood way before you decide you wanted to mess up and become some kind of fatherhood. You're responsible for your manhood. I don't expect you to be responsible in your fatherhood. You can't be thinking like recreation and apply recreation appropriation and don't think no responsibility come along with that. But that's the type of pacifier that we've been given, being on sexism in this society. And we do have a male privilege, just like we say that white people have white privilege. And sometimes we just don't own up to it in these conversations. But I have to hold myself like accountable, first of all, as a God-fearing man, and then a whole man, being a husband, a father, whatever, a son. I have to still put because guess what? At any day, Ron, and I'm a married man, most importantly, any day that I decide I want to give my will to my right, to my right, anytime my rights start to become more important than me and stop to benefit everybody in my family and throughout the world and society or whatever, then it's probably going to be a wrong, and that's where the problem going to start in my marriage. I got 4 kids from 4 different women because I existed in my right to do it. That's what my right looked like. You understand? And until we
I agree. Listen, I don't listen. My argument is not about. Listen, my argument is about what and my argument is about what a right is, right? Where is my right? Are you saying I don't get no rights because I'm a man? I get no rights to make a choice to this woman I'm married to, and we have 3 kids, and then something happens, and I find out none of those kids is mine. I don't get no rights. There is some accountability that has to be placed on human beings, regardless their gender, their race, their ethnicity, any of that. Some accountability. You can't say, "Oh, I'm a woman, so it's okay for me to do something." No, it's okay because I'm black. It's okay to be black and go and rob stores because I'm black and everything's against me. That's not acceptable. You still have to account for yourself, the human being.
Okay, but I'm gonna tell you what your right is. Your right is this. You have a right. You ready for this, Ron? And this is, I'm speaking to all men. We have a right to reap what we sow. And so if I asked you how many women you played with versus how many women played with you, be it kid or no kid, you understand? Will the number match up? You understand? So how many women you used your right to play with before one finally played with you? You don't think laws of reaping and sowing don't apply to your behaviors? And now all of a sudden we want to talk about our right, and we want people to be more responsible with our right than we were with theirs. If that happened to you,
and listen, let me say that. I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to let Gene, because I know Gene got something to say. I'm going to say this. But then sometimes we live in a real funny world where a lot of times the people who had never did those things, it happened to, and the people who did it, they get away scot-free. We live in a world sometimes where people who did everything, that's why I asked Ed, the question I asked, that when you realized what you wanted, what you was going to push to, right? But what if your wife wasn't her mission, and then you end up in that? We can't speak to it because it worked out. Everything was cool and it worked out, but we don't live in a world where everything works out. Sometimes, and then who's accountable? Ed, because Ed told himself he was going to do this, he wanted to be this, wanted to do that, but the other person in a relationship, the person who was there, didn't do their part. And I got to take, and he has to take on the responsibility for that. Because now, what he wanted, he didn't get, but now he got something. Right? What he wanted, he didn't get, but now he got something. And what does he do with that? And that changes the trajectory of his whole life at some point.
I want to make two comments. One, and good evening, fellas. I know I'm on a little late, but I was listening. I was in the background listening before I could jump on and speak. Two things. One, I wanted to comment on something that Lightborn said, and I wanted to comment on the manhood and fatherhood. And I think that the problem that a lot of people have is that they treat both of them as if they're different entities when they're one and the same. Because your manhood takes you to fatherhood, and those traits that you had in manhood do what made you a man makes you a better father, makes you a strong father, right? When you have those proper traits in your manhood, because when and correct me if I'm wrong, Lightborn, when you talk about manhood, you talk about the responsible man, right? Not just talking about because I'm 18 now I'm a man. It's what have you done to prove yourself useful as a man, and what has your leadership skills brought that contributes to the society that you're a part of, right? And so you take those same ideals into fatherhood and you apply it not only to a community, but now you apply it to your own family. And so we have to not treat them both as two separate things, but make sure that we always remember they're one and the same. It's just one is a how do you say it? Kind of like a step up, so to speak, when it comes to the other. So you can find your fatherhood through your manhood, and in times you can also find your manhood through your fatherhood, because children do change you. So you have to remember that it goes one and the same. And not saying that you didn't say that, Lightborn, but I'm saying for the people who are watching that it's one and the same, and don't treat them as two separate entities, because each one, if used properly, will build on the other and make you stronger in who you are. The second thing I wanted to comment on.
Gene, let me just add a comment so people can see a visual of what you're saying. We talked about it all the time back in the old days when we was in live meetings. You go from childhood to boyhood to manhood to husbandhood to fatherhood. So those is the hoods, the 5 hoods. And if you don't follow them, and it's not something against you if you don't, because I didn't get to follow them. My trajectory of how I wanted it to go got changed. So I got skipped from my husbandhood all the way straight to fatherhood. I wanted husbandhood, but I lost my turn because maybe something in my manhood caused me to miss out on my husbandhood, and I ended up being a father before I was a husband. So remember those 5 steps: childhood, boyhood, manhood, husbandhood, fatherhood. The final one is fatherhood. They don't come.
Okay, let me give a shout out to my daughter. I think she online listening. Hey, Latoya, I see your message, but I can't respond because I don't know how to respond on this thing. But your neighborhoods, your hoods. You got to understand. You're right. They're all hoods, right? They're all forms of communities of men, right? But you got to understand that the type of mentality that a man has, that's what they call it, mentality. The type of mentality that a man has will determine what type of neighborhood he brings his child into. And so all of those hoods are not universal. Some of them hoods are ghetto. Some of them hoods are poverty stricken. Some of them hoods have a lot of homeless people in it because it depends on the mentality of the hood that you're in. Your hood weighs heavily on your mentality, and whatever your mentality is, that it bears. Guess what? That's the type of birth you're going to give. That's the type of child, that's the type of hood you're going to leave your child. You understand? And so when I talk about responsibility again, responsibility talks directly to the mentality. What you're talking about, back to J. Rob's point, J. Rob, a man and a father, I would say a man and a father, what am I trying to say? A man graduates to a father, right? Because we're talking about deadbeat parents on here. So a man and a father, it's not really one and the same, because if that was true, we'll have better numbers when it comes to family statistics. And so, yes, we have all men. Guess what? They were one and the same. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back to that. If they were one and the same, we have better statistics. And so you got a lot of men out here, right, who are not fathers, or better, and then voluntarily don't want to be fathers. We may find like really small numbers of guys who really want to be it, and they pushing forward and they getting pushed back on. But the reason they getting the flat is not so much from the minority, it's the majority. You understand? That sacrifice or put that pressure on the minority of fathers who truly want to do right. And so you will see, they always say nice guys finish last. There's a certain science to that, because we talk to those fathers all the time. These are the fathers who want to do right, but just like society say, nice guys finish last. People will usually fight who they think they can beat or who wouldn't fight them back. You understand? People are more apt to, guess what, stand up against people they really don't need to stand up against versus the people they need to stand up against. Because when I see an unwinnable fight, most people won't fight an unwinnable fight. So if I see this guy is no good, I'm not going to try to institute the fight to try to make him be the good that my child deserves. And so guess what I do? I accept the abandonment. But when I see a man, right, back to that father gene, I see a man that's going to try and have a lot more tolerance and buy into me. You understand? You're going to tend to see a little pushback, because guess what? I see something that will be substance or sustenance as soft. And until I can get to the mentality that, hold a minute, this is not soft, this is sustenance, right? Because I'm a person that used to be abused, abandoned, and neglected. That's not just for children, that's for women too, men too. But the majority is women and children who experienced abuse, abandonment, and neglect. I think women experience abuse, abandonment, and neglect way before it is actually they bring the children into the situation. So when you see a woman who was treating poorly or badly starts to get somewhat of a good man, that man gets a lot of pushback for being something that, number one, she never thought she would deserve anyway. So kindness hurts her. You understand? That's the dysfunction. Kindness is I'm not used to this kind of treatment. And so now you got to be reconditioned, just like the man should recondition himself to even be a man before he can be the effective father he needs to be. That woman has to go through a reconditioning as well. And so as a therapist, Ron, we have to respect the process of pain. And then the child is stuck in the middle of that, and that child have his own pain that's going to show up later on in life. Once the mother and the father get their act together, now you're going to see the child start to act up from the previous pain that the mother and father was going through. That's all I'm saying.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, but you know, I think I hear what you're saying, Lightboy, but I still don't find them to be separate entities, right? And I understand, because when it comes to manhood, I guess you can look at it as just like fatherhood. It could be subjective, right? It's not really an objective thing. Everyone's going to have an opinion of what a real man is and what a real father is, based on experience, based on what you believe, based on your ideals, because you never had that experience of having a father. So you have your ideals. I get that. But when we talk about core things like accountability, responsibility, dedication, those core values that I think could be universal, whether it's manhood, it also fits in fatherhood. And you take one from one area to the other. I don't leave accountability because I had manhood. I'm a man, and I'm accountable. As a father, I'm still going to be a man who's accountable, but I'm just going to be accountable for my family and my kids. And as a father, even if I don't have a great relationship with the mother of my child, I still have a sense of accountability to her, because we have a responsibility to the child. And I think it all gets lost. And it all gets lost when you start to pick and choose what it is that we want to figure someone else out to be, right? And I always say this, when it comes to the numbers of people who actually want to be in their child's life versus the ones who don't want to be in their child's life, the statistics are actually reversed. They make it seem as if there's a lot more fathers out there who don't want to be in their kids' life, where it's a minority of fathers who don't want to be in their kids' life and a majority of fathers who actually do. And it's a minority of women who are gatekeeping versus a majority of women who are gatekeeping. I think those numbers are always going to be skewed depending on where you want to run your statistics from and where you want to get it. Because us on this panel, based on statistics, half of us should be deadbeat dads. Yet none of us are. All of us are engaged.
I'm a deadbeat dad, they say. But I wish the garnishment people would help with that if I'm such a deadbeat. But again, and I can't, Gene. I started to cut you off, but
no, go ahead.
That becomes so subjective based on who makes the decision to make this narrative for whatever they want to make it, and it depends on how many people will believe that.
And that's what I'm getting at. And even if Ron, even if you say yes, you're a deadbeat dad, right? You're still not half of the panel. You're that minority that I'm talking about.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And so when we look at our numbers, you have to realize where they're getting these numbers from, where they get it, and why. And like Lightborn likes to say, their narrative is not our narrative. And we have to take the narrative and own our narrative, because if we allow someone else to control the narrative, then we'll always be spinning our wheels wondering, why am I the only one who thinks like this? And so we have to stop. We have to stop believing we're the only ones who think like this, and understand there's going to be a lot more people who think like us. We're a lot more people who want to be engaged, a lot more people who want to be a part of their kid's life. And deadbeat is determined. And to believe it or not, deadbeat is illegal, because the court system. I remember, and this is a side note, but I remember when I was up in college, right, up in Tallahassee, there was actually a channel for deadbeat dads, where you can turn to that channel and it scrolled the fathers who were in the system for non-child support payment. So you see, it's as if they want to paint a picture, and they're trying so hard to paint that picture. And if we allow them to continue to paint the picture, we'll always be talking about there's so few of us and a lot more of them. When it's when that number is actually reversed. I'll stop there.
You know, to add real quick, there are many parties involved here. We're talking about the law, we're talking about the courts, we're talking about healthcare. Raising a child, it's work, it's dedication. From the child is conceived all the way up until the child graduates and continue their lives. I say this sometimes. We are here. Most of us are here to reprocreate, to have a child, and hopefully leave some legend on this earth. There is no, how could I put this? We can be trained in many different situations, but there's no one tool that's going to make everything right. So to every father online and fathers that may see this video years to come, do the right thing. Stop, think, observe, and proceed. And just do the right thing, because it is very challenging. But with the right people in place, with the right mindset, you can grow your child and make your child become a productive citizen and play a big role on this earth. That's what I like to add.
I think I kind of want to highlight something that Lightborn said earlier about being a man. I think there's theology behind that. Well, I know there is. I think what ends up happening is that circumstances beyond that man's control may dictate how that man responds to whatever that circumstance may be. Like Ron, you had mentioned about you come together, you share a milkshake and find out somebody to put alcohol in it. You wasn't expecting that, but to kind of support what Lightborn was saying, if you have secured your manhood, the circumstance will not dictate you being less of a man. It should dictate you being more of a man because of your circumstance. So I guess herein lies where I might be able to identify, at least with the gentlemen on this panel who have children out of wedlock, and for whatever circumstances beyond their control, they were not able to be married to their child's mom. But I think ultimately that secureness in your manhood will lead to your husbandhood and your fatherhood. But if circumstances beyond your control make you skip husbandhood and jump right to fatherhood, that manness, if it's secured, you're going to handle your responsibilities regardless of the circumstance.
Right.
So I think that's where I identify with what you were saying, Lightborn, is that there seems to be a lot of people who have been insecure in their manhood, and they've skipped husbandhood and they're jumping to fatherhood, but they don't know how to act because they ain't never been secure with their manhood. They don't know how to act.
That's a good example. I greatly appreciate that, Tini. I'm gonna share an example, and I'm just gonna be my last thing to say. They just pretty much expound on or give an example of what you just described. I had to sit down with my son as a man. I'm talking about my oldest son, Now I'm having this talk with him as a man. And so finally we had to have this talk about, to give him a brief history on the reality of me and his mom, who had went on married a wonderful guy. I give him his props. I think he found fault with the guy. And here's where the manhood thing comes in. So here I'm a man. I'm talking to my son who's a man. And now I got to defend another man who was a good man to him. You understand? And so with that, the validity of my manhood and whatever I was getting ready to, because I disagreed with him, and I had to tell him as a man, you are wrong. You understand? Because I'm like, contrary to popular belief, I'm not saying your stepfather or your mother's husband is better than me. But what I am saying, he was a better man for your mother than I was. You understand?
And it takes a man to do that.
Right. And so I say, I don't. And so when I hear him, because immediately he thought that it would be comfortable enough to just say what he say about this man, particularly being a good man, to another man that he thought was going to just side with the type of man he was, or being a wrong man because I'm his father as a man. And so I'm like, I don't need no brownie points. Back to being secure in your manhood. I'm like, I'm man enough, right, to let this man, my son who's now a man, know what a good man is and how he benefited from that man being a good man. You understand? And how that even helped me in my manhood. Because we talk about the village, but the village is a very painful sight sometimes, especially in a disenfranchised situation, in our culture being disenfranchised by this country. And so manhood is going to look a lot different in our culture than it would in normal culture. You understand? But I recognize, even just instinctively, I mean, literally instinctively, what was important and what was not. And so I say at this particular moment, this particular conversation, I might very well shape the trajectory of my son manhood if I give him the wrong advice about the manhood of his stepfather, who was a good man. You understand? Just for my own selfishness. And so I had to really correct it and let that balance know, because I'm like, hey man, no. You understand? Because we're both better men, you as his stepson and me as your father, because of the good man that he was to you. Had he not been a good man, then that's a whole different conversation. Because you may not be here, I may not be, and he may not be. And so I think it's very important for us to know when to defend the integrity, and particularly of good men in our society, even if we didn't like them. And that's what being secure in your manhood is about. Because I can not like you and still respect the love in you and for you. And I'm done. That's all. So I'm done. I'm off that soapbox right now.
It's interesting that you say that, Lightborn. It's interesting that you say that, because I was having a conversation about that with someone the other day, and we were talking, and I was trying to explain that same thing. Just because we don't get along doesn't mean everything you say I have to disagree with. Just because we don't get along, you could say some valid points, and as a man, as a person, and I think part of it is being secure in who you are, to understand that just because I agree with you doesn't define or doesn't have to change the fact that we don't mesh. You see what I'm saying? I just have to understand that there are going to be some things, because we're human, there are going to be some things we agree on, there's going to be some things we disagree on. And you also have to start to think, well, what is it that makes me not want to like you? And why am I fighting so hard to continue not to like you? You see what I'm saying? Because sometimes we've got to fight to figure out why we keep not liking somebody while they just live their life vicariously. So but interestingly enough, like what you said, even if I don't agree with you on every point, doesn't mean I can't agree with you on some points. And I think when we start to understand that as men, as fathers, because our kids are not going to agree with us on everything we do. They won't understand it until they get to our age and be like, you know what? I got it. Or they may not understand it till they become fathers to say, you know what? I get it. And that's our daughters too. So we just have to understand that just because, again, I'm reiterating this, just because we don't agree does not mean we have to be enemies. It just means it just gives us an opportunity to agree on something else later on and keep an open mind. And I think it's all about objectivity, because once you start to find fault in every single thing, you start to become subjective and closed-minded.
Yeah,
You just made me remember a song. It says, what's this? Like almost like a folk country song, like I can hear the rhythm in my head. We don't see eye to eye. There's no good guys. There's no bad guys. There's only you and me, and we just disagree. Whoa, whoa, whoa. That's an old song. I'm like, that just came back
I
to my
know
memory.
that song. I know what song you're talking about.
You know the song I'm talking about? It's a
Yeah.
very good song, though. It's on
I'm
white girl, but it's a really good song.
going to give an example of what Robert just mentioned. I'm a divorced dad. I have my ex-wife, and we talk because I keep a very open relationship with her. I try not to get into the feelings with her. And she said to me, you know, we do very well, but we do poorly when it comes to money. That's what she said to me. And I said to her, so I listened. She communicated, and I responded. I said, we don't do poorly when it comes to money. I said, what happens is that there are unfed and untold expectations. I say this to everyone out there. If you earn a certain amount of money, let's say 30,000, 40,000, 70,000, you can only spend that amount. And sometimes you have to be very clear with your partner what you can afford. Because there are people out there who have expectations that are unrealistic. And that's why communication is so important in relationships, because people really don't have a problem with each other. They have a problem because of the expectations that are not being met and the expectations that are not being fed. And if we can be open, be truthful, communicate clearly, I always say this: a 4-cylinder can't beat an 8-cylinder. It may move on faster, but the 8-cylinder is going to catch it up. And the 4-cylinder is a 4-cylinder, an 8-cylinder is an 8-cylinder. So many times we just need to communicate well and have that relationship. And again, with the child being the focus, and we can achieve something to think about.
Oh, I found the song just in case you guys want to listen to it when we get off this live. It's a song by Dave Mason, and it's called "We Just Disagree." It's a really good song. You're gonna love the lyrics in it.
Disagree to agree, right?
No, it's
Well,
just
I'm
we
gonna
just
agree that
disagree.
the guys
Dave
we
Mason.
I'm gonna agree that we have come almost to our time. Well, now we a little bit over. I mean, all I can, as I would always say, coming back off of a break, like we did, and people being here, and one of the things I'm going to say is, man, this conversation tonight was one for the records. One thing I'm so happy is, right, is that it's documented somewhere for people to hear. Because this little conversation we had has so much in it that could very well benefit somebody, can make them see, as much as I, had pushed what I was pushing. One of the biggest parts of my dissertation um, was men as fathers, right? And that was one of the terms that I used, that I cloned, that men as fathers, and people kept saying, "What do you mean, men as fathers?" And because, as we kind of talked about tonight, people believe that men and fathers are two separate things, and that's what we get to what you're really, what I feel you're really talking about. Like born is, as a man, you carry the seed to be a father, so you need to always already be thinking like a father, right? That takes some high intellect to it shouldn't take high intellect, but it takes some high self-actualization to get to a place to realize that I am a man, but I'm not just a man. My sperm is not just some stuff for porn movies to shoot around and shoot over here. It is for me to carry life, to shoot into life. It's to bring life. And because I have that, I have to remember that makes me the man. And that man makes me a father automatically. Automatically. If you got testes and there's sperms floating around, you're a father. Even if you never use it, you're a father. And we don't self-actualize that enough for us as men, like women are able to self-actualize being a woman completely connected to being a mother. We have this idea of being able to separate the two. Women never separate the two. That becomes some of their anxiety and stress and strain in their life to have anything else going on when they're not a mother, because they think it is so tied to being a woman. How could I be a woman and not be a mother? And vice versa. So just so people know, listen, people would love to say, well, they left the show, he was mad at Lightborn, and we listen. We're here to have intellectual discussion at a high level, and a level hopefully also at a low enough level, at a low enough level that you can get down with it if you can't reach up that high. But the aspiration is that you get our message at the lowest level and be able to reach up to that higher place of fatherhood from the kind of man that you are. And with that being said, I want to say thanks to everybody for joining us tonight. Like, share, subscribe. Tonight was very low, but probably it's low because we wasn't on Facebook. I got to go and do some investigation, because when we was on Facebook 2 times before, we had an audience that was out of here live. We got high praise, so I'm going to figure that out, and I got to figure it out at least for my own self for Therapy Thursday by Thursday. So I'll be figuring that out either tonight or tomorrow. But again, thanks everyone of you guys for joining us. If you don't come, we don't have it. So thank you again for taking time from your families and from whatever you're doing to come here and share with these fans, share with the people, share with the women, the men, the people who are watching us at the Fatherhood Think Tank. And with that being said, fathers, repeat after me. I am a man of honor.
I am a man of honor.
I am a man of courage.
I am a man of courage.
I am a man of respect.
I am a man of respect.
Come on, fathers. I say that I am.
I
say that you are.
You are.
I say that we are.
We are.
Championship. And if you don't know what that means we holding our children on our arms and the world on our back. So we are men as fathers living the life that we should. And thank you for joining us. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you here back next week on Fatherhood Think Tank. Good night.
All right.
Have a
Good
blessed
night, fellas.
evening,
Have a
fam.
good evening.